When we talk about resilience, we almost always rely on the exact same physical metaphor. We picture a thick rubber band pulling tight under immense pressure, and then, once the tension releases, snapping perfectly back to its original shape. The mechanical flaw in that metaphor comes down to basic material science. Every time an elastic band stretches to its absolute limit, the material suffers microscopic tears. Over repeated cycles of stress, the internal structure degrades, and eventually it snaps entirely. If human psychology worked like that elastic band, surviving trauma would be a losing game. If we simply returned to our exact previous baseline after every major crisis, the accumulated wear and tear of lifelong hardship would steadily erode our minds until we broke permanently. Expecting survival to look like an elastic return to the past misunderstands how we actually recover. True survival requires the human mind to operate as a complex adaptive system that utilizes moments of total breakdown to execute a structural upgrade. Psychologists break this upgrade down into a biological process known as the reintegration sequence. The immediate aftermath of a severe shock triggers phase 1, dissolution. This diagram represents a stable human mind. When hardship hits, it introduces a massive spike of entropy, destabilizing the neural pathways of your daily routine. Your brain frantically tries mapping old predictive models onto a traumatic new reality, but the obsolete pieces refuse to fit. Because the underlying structure has dissolved, the standard coping mechanisms you relied on for years fail entirely. You cannot outthink the problem because the exact hardware you normally use to think is offline. This systemic disruption demands so much metabolic energy that it leaves you with deep, bone-level physical exhaustion and thick, heavy neurological brain fog. This manifests as a terrifying loss of identity. As the neural connections that defined your daily existence drift apart, the old self loses its structural integrity. The intense pain of falling apart serves a specific biological purpose. It acts as a clearing phase, the necessary demolition of obsolete cognitive architecture required to force an adaptation. Once the old structure clears, you enter the transitional middle phase. Your psychological system remains highly destabilized, but it becomes uniquely malleable. We often hear about neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, when learning a new language or skill. But under extreme distress, neuroplasticity operates with severe biological urgency. Look at the brain's stress chemistry. Cortisol and adrenaline feel awful, yet here they act as active chemical signals, demanding the construction of new neural pathways. This is the messy alchemy of the mind. To survive, the brain must wire novel solutions. People frequently offer the passive advice to simply wait for time to heal. However, your nervous system is working overtime, actively testing and reinforcing new microscopic connections. This malleable state is exhausting. The brain is diverting massive amounts of energy to create these new connections, meaning the profound discomfort you feel is the metabolic cost of your system working to rewire itself. Eventually, the new environmental information is fully integrated. The rebuilding slows down, and your psychological system finally stabilizes into phase 3, reorganization. When this reorganization succeeds, it produces a quantifiable psychological reality, known as post-traumatic growth. This comparative diagram maps the results. On the left is the pre-trauma network. On the right is the new baseline identity. The post-trauma system exhibits observable increase in complexity. That structural density yields higher emotional regulation and deeper capacity for interpersonal empathy. This reorganization doesn't return you to who you were. It results in a more complex, interconnected network, one that is better equipped to process the very shocks that once threatened to break the system entirely. Seen through this lens, hardship is more than an obstacle. It is the specific catalyst that forces a psychological system to break its old patterns and reintegrate into a more resilient form. Resilience is an ongoing, active process of integration. It is a deliberate biological sequence requiring immense effort, rather than an innate trait that a lucky few are simply born with. The next time you face profound adversity and feel yourself breaking down, reframe what is happening. Recognize that you are entering phase 1 of the reintegration sequence. It will feel terrifying, like a permanent break. But biologically, you are simply dissolving to prepare your nervous system for a necessary upgrade. We do not bounce back from the worst things that happen to us. We use the alchemy of our own biology to step forward as entirely new systems.